It all started in the first grade, and we had a school play for Earth Day, and they divided the class to different parts of, nature, the birds, the bees, and the trees, and I was a tree. And we rehearsed and practiced, and then the day came for the play, and we were all kind of in our places, and the curtain was there, and the curtain was drawn, and a huge crowd of parents like this was revealed, and terror filled my body. If I was a real tree, my leaves would have fell off. So it came to our part where the trees had to do their song and dance, and we stepped up, and I ran off the stage crying into my mother's arms. Fast forward 20 years later, I was working at a small physical therapy clinic, and I had not had any good public speaking experience to date. There was one basketball thing that went horribly, and a college class that I did bad too. I was working at this clinic, and the therapist there had a vacation, and they had a sub fill in for him. And that Monday, here comes walking in Dale Hilbolt, this tall, lanky, bald guy with big glasses, kind of goofy looking, and he introduced himself. And we spent the whole week working together. And he asked all kinds of questions about me, and he really cared. And we bonded over sports and music and reading and literature, and we really got to know each other well. And after that week, we stayed in touch, and we would go to basketball games and see concerts together. And anytime my regular therapist would take vacation, Dale would fill in, and he really became a mentor for me. One time when he found out I still had a CD player in my car, he gave me Van Morrison's Help Me, Moon Dance CD, and said, play this on the way home and the way back. If you can't make love to this music, there's no hope for you. So I came back the next day. I said, Dale, this is the best album I've ever heard in my entire life. So years later, I got through school, and he was working somewhere else, and 2020 came, and Dale got sick, and then one tragic Monday morning, I found out that Dale had died and didn't make it, and I was crushed. So that was Monday. His funeral was set on Friday, and I hate to lay this on thick, but it was the same day that I'd lost. The funeral was on the same day for a high school friend who had just died from an overdose, and so I really felt like I had to be at both funerals that day, and they do not make an app for that. So morning of Friday morning, I went to my friend's funeral first and greeted his mother and his father and his sister, and wished them condolences and apologized that I had to leave and I couldn't stay for the whole viewing. And I raced down 283 to where my good buddy's Dale's funeral was, and I got there just as the greeting line was kind of ending with Dale's wife and his kids. And I got to the end of the line, and as I was hugging his wife and introducing myself to his kids, they were kind of wrapping it up and telling everyone to sit down. So sit down, they start off, the priest gets up there, says some words, and he says, we're going to have a few prepared remarks today, and then anyone in the crowd who has anything to say, feel free to come up at the end and go ahead and say it. And I immediately thought to myself, I have to say something. I have to tell his wife and his kids what Dale meant to me and how important and great of a human being he was. So I sat there and half listened to the speeches and half kind of came up with my own thing of what I was going to say. And finally it came that it was my turn, and I got up there and I looked at his wife sitting in the front row with his kids, kind of sad and crying, and I told him these stories. I told him Dale would tell stories all the time. And one story I particularly liked, he coached his son's baseball team, and they didn't win any games. It was kind of a bad news bears situation. And Dale used to smoke back then, and I would picture Dale smoking a cigarette and hitting grounders to these kind of kids looking like Billy Bob Thornton or Walter Matthau for some older folk in the room. And then I said, I told him the Van Morrison story, not so much detail, and the night before, this local band that I really liked was playing at this little venue right next to my apartment. I was working late that night, so I rushed home and got there just as the second act was starting. I got a beer and sat in the corner by myself, and the band started to play Into the Mystic by Van Morrison. I just kind of sat there and cried into my beer by myself, and it was really cathartic. It really felt like it was kind of meant to be kind of thing. And then I finished, and I told everyone that Dale's legacy and his teachings will live on through me, because as a young therapist, I watched Dale work with patients, and he was so good at therapy and communicating with people. And every time I tell a patient, the goal of therapy is to feel a little better each day and have more good days and less bad days and make the bad days not so bad. That'll be me carrying on Dale's legacy. Thank you.